There's a narrow creek about 30 yards wide that separates my house from the long, squat building on the other side, a memory care facility called Pine Hollow. My wife, Renee, and I moved into this house nearly a year ago with our 9-year-old son, Tyler. We live in a part of town that's close to everything, but still tucked away enough that you'd hear coyotes at night before you heard a car engine. When we bought the place, the real estate agent made a point of mentioning the memory care center as a non-issue. "Quiet neighbors," she said jokingly. We barely noticed it after we moved in. No noise, no lights, no activity. A gray concrete thing on the other side of the water that might as well have been empty. And then one night at 2:17 a.m., Tyler screamed. Renee and I shot out of bed and rushed down the hall to his room. He was sitting upright in bed, trembling, his hands up like he was trying to shield his face. In the far corner of his room, half lit by the moonlight through his blinds, stood an elderly man. He was shirtless and wearing nothing but stained pajama pants. His back was hunched, and his skin looked like something between paper and ash. A tangle of wiry white hair crowned his head like weeds growing out of rock. His eyes were wide, unnaturally so, and they were locked on Tyler with such intensity it made my skin crawl. "Jesus Christ," Renee said, grabbing Tyler from the bed. "Hey," I barked. "Who are you?" The man didn't respond. He didn't blink. He didn't even twitch. I stepped between him and my family, and only then did he acknowledge me, by turning his head slowly in my direction, mouth falling open. No teeth, just a black hollow and a glistening tongue. I grabbed the baseball bat from Tyler's closet and shouted again. The man didn't move. Renee called 911 while I stayed between them. When I asked if he was from Pine Hollow, there was no reaction. But I didn't need confirmation. I already knew. 10 minutes later, 2 Pine Hollow staff members and a police officer showed up. They handled the man gently. One of them called him Walter. The cop apologized for the incident, chalking it up to a door that hadn't been properly locked. Walter apparently had wandered off unnoticed. Tyler slept with us for weeks after that. I couldn't blame him. We tried to move past it. We told ourselves it was a freak accident. But then came the second night. About 3 weeks later, around 10:30 p.m., Renee and I were watching a cooking show in the living room. Tyler had finally gone back to sleeping in his own room again. I remember because it was the first night I'd started to feel something like normal again. Renee glanced toward the window and then froze. "What?" I asked. "I thought," she trailed off. "I thought I saw someone walking past the porch." I stood up and walked to the window. Nothing. I stepped outside. Still nothing. The night was calm, quiet, but a weird smell hung in the air, like rust and medicine. I told her it was probably nothing. We went back to watching TV. An hour later, I got up to get water and saw someone through the kitchen window. A figure, on the other side of the creek, just standing there, staring at our house. I turned on the backyard floodlights. The person didn't flinch. An old woman, thin as a stick, dressed in a hospital gown that fluttered in the breeze. Her eyes didn't reflect the light. They absorbed it. I yelled out, "Do you need help?" She didn't respond, just turned and walked slowly back toward Pine Hollow, disappearing behind the trees. Renee wanted to call the police again. I told her not to. We didn't want to be that family who calls 911 every time a confused senior citizen loses their way. I should have called. A few nights after that, Tyler woke up with scratches down his arm. Long, jagged ones, like someone had raked their nails across his skin. He said he had a nightmare about someone crawling across the ceiling in his room. Renee checked for signs of forced entry. I checked the windows. Everything was locked. That same morning, I noticed small muddy footprints on the hardwood floor in the hallway. Old feet, narrow, with bunions. I scrubbed them clean without telling Renee. The third night was worse. It was late January, 3:11 a.m. I remember the exact time because I was awake, just lying there in bed for no reason, staring at the ceiling. Something didn't feel right. Then I heard splashing. I got up and looked out our bedroom window, the one facing the creek. Dozens of people were crossing it. Old people. Some with walkers, some barefoot, some naked. The water was cold, there was frost on the grass, but they didn't seem to notice. They were heading straight for our house. I ran to Tyler's room and grabbed him, pulling him out of bed and into Renee's arms. I told her to go into the garage, lock the interior door, and stay there with Tyler. I'd hold them off until the police arrived. I called 911 as I grabbed the metal poker from the fireplace. The dispatcher told me to stay calm, but I could already hear banging on the back windows. Then came the glass breaking. I turned and saw an elderly man, completely naked, blood on his face, climbing in through the shattered sliding door. His eyes were fixed on me, but his head was tilted up, like he was listening to something above us. More windows broke, more figures entered. There had to be 20 of them. I ran toward the staircase and blocked the way up. They didn't speak. They growled. One of them, an old woman with sagging skin and one shoe, lunged. I swung the poker and hit her shoulder. She didn't scream. She didn't even flinch. She just kept coming. Then something strange happened. All at once, every one of them turned and looked up. Not at me, above me. I realized they were all looking at the ceiling, right where Tyler's room was. They shoved past me, slowly, like a tide of pale, wrinkled bodies, and moved up the stairs. I panicked. I sprinted through the crowd and down to the garage. Renee and Tyler were huddled behind the car. I locked the door behind me and told them what had happened. We didn't hear much after that, just the creak of floorboards and the occasional raspy breathing through the walls. Then the sirens came. The cops arrived like thunder. Dozens of them. Flashlights lit up the house. Doors burst open. I heard shouting, followed by screaming. Then gunfire. Lots of it. When an officer finally opened the garage door, I saw blood on his uniform. He told us to follow him. We stepped out into a night full of flashing lights and chaos. Stretchers, ambulances, news vans arriving down the road. They'd found 34 residents from Pine Hollow in our house. 17 were dead, 8 injured. The rest sedated and taken back. And they'd found something else too. A crawl space under Tyler's room. In it, dozens of dolls, all facing up. And a set of old blueprints showing a tunnel that used to connect Pine Hollow to our home. Long sealed off. The tunnel had collapsed years ago. Or so they thought. No one could explain how the residents got out, crossed the creek, and entered our home without setting off alarms. or how they knew to head straight for Tyler's room. The staff at Pine Hollow had all been drugged, sleeping pills crushed into their coffee. The police said it wasn't an isolated incident. 2 other homes in our town reported strange sightings that same night. Tyler doesn't sleep upstairs anymore. We moved into a condo across town. We're selling the house if anyone will take it. I checked the dates. The first incident, October 13th. The second, November 12th. The third, December 11th. Each one 29 days apart. Today is January 9th. We haven't seen anything. Not yet. But Renee just woke me up. Tyler says there's something under his bed, something humming, and I swear I can hear footsteps, wet ones, coming up the stairs.